All right, so let's talk about the phrase locked and loaded. You've heard it a million times, right? But have you ever stopped to think about how it got, well, everywhere? We're going to trace its wild journey, from a simple military command for a weapon, to the language of video games, to the football field, and all the way to the bully pulpit of international politics. It's a fascinating story.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start wide, looking at where we all hear the phrase today, in pop culture. Then we're going to narrow it way down, back to its literal mechanical source. And that's our turning point. From there, we'll see how it exploded onto the world stage, look at a hypothetical policy built around this idea, and finally zoom back out to see the very real, very human consequences of this kind of thinking.
So I gotta ask, what does it really mean to be locked in or locked and loaded? As you're about to see, the answer really depends on who you ask. Is it just about being focused, totally prepared, or does it mean something a whole lot more aggressive? Let's get into it.
Okay, first up, let's start where most of us bump into this phrase. In our everyday lives, a world away from any actual battlefield.
For a whole generation, this is just how you talk. As this Reddit user points out, for Gen Alpha, the phrase basically comes from the world of gaming, locking on to a target. It's all about that intense, dialed-in focus and being ready for action.
And hey, it's not just gamers. Jump over to the world of professional sports, and you hear top-tier athletes like Matthew Stafford using the exact same words. When he says the team is locked and loaded, he means they're laser-focused, they've done their homework, and they are 100% ready to go.
And you can see just how much this phrase has spread. I mean, NBA players use it, people in the office use it to talk about getting a project done. It even describes an athlete signing a contract. It's been totally co-opted for any situation that demands you be ready and focused.
So, if everybody from a teenager with a controller to a star quarterback is using this phrase, where in the world did it actually come from? To figure that out, we've got to hit rewind, go past all the modern slang, and get right down to its physical, mechanical source.
And here it is, the original definition. It is, first and foremost, a technical term for preparing a firearm. But check out that second part. The figurative meaning is baked right in from the start, fully prepared for aggressive action. That little hint of aggression, it's always been there.
Okay, let's get super literal for a second. Step 1, you lock the action, which often means putting on the safety. Step 2, you load the ammunition. The result? The weapon is now at its peak state of readiness, ready to be used at a moment's notice. And that's the whole point. The phrase literally describes making a machine ready for immediate, violent action.
And this is the moment our whole story pivots. We've seen the phrase in culture. We've gone back to its mechanical origin. Now we're going to see what happens when that very technical term, with all of its built-in aggression, gets picked up and used as a tool of global politics.
In August of 2017, this tweet launched the phrase, "From the barracks right onto the world stage." In the middle of some really high tensions with North Korea, locked and loaded suddenly wasn't slang anymore. It was a direct, incredibly powerful message of military threat.
But that brings up a huge question, one that was analyzed by Lawfare. When you use a piece of cultural slang like this, especially an aggressive one, in diplomacy, can you really be sure that the other side, a totally different culture, understands it the way you mean it? In a standoff where one misstep could be a disaster, is that kind of ambiguity a risk you want to take?
So that makes you wonder, right? If locked and loaded is the language being used, what would an actual foreign policy built on that mindset look like? To try and answer that, we're going to look at a speculative source that imagines exactly how that rhetoric could be turned into policy.
Okay, and this is a really, really important disclaimer. The info you're about to see is from a hypothetical Wikipedia article. This is purely a speculative source, imagining one possible future. We're showing you its points just to illustrate a way of thinking, not to present this as some kind of factual prediction. Just want to be super clear on that.
So this hypothetical policy sketches out some pretty big shifts. You can see the themes, right? A turn inward, focusing on domestic issues, applying powerful labels like terrorist to internal groups, and a real readiness to act unilaterally, whether that's with missile strikes in Nigeria or by cutting off aid to Ukraine. The whole thing is tied together by that core idea, a state of constant, aggressive preparation.
So for our final section, let's leave the hypothetical behind and broaden our focus. What are the actual, on-the-ground consequences when this kind of aggressive rhetoric becomes policy? Like, for example, economic sanctions, which are a major tool of maximum pressure.
This chart tells a pretty shocking story. Before major sanctions hit in 2012, Iran's middle class was around 45% of its people. After, it dropped to just 35%. But look at that third bar. That's what researchers calculated would have happened without the sanctions. The middle class would have actually grown to almost 50%. You just can't deny it. These policies have a direct and painful impact on the wallets of regular people.
And the economic fallout is just where it starts. This info, which comes from a UN human rights report, lays out the devastating human cost. The stated goal is to put maximum pressure on a regime. But the reported reality on the ground is collapsed water systems, shortages of medicine and food, and a catastrophic inability to deliver basic vaccines, causing vaccination rates to plummet.
And that brings us right back to the beginning. We started with a phrase that was just a simple technical command. Lock the safety, load the ammo. And we watched it become a piece of our culture and then a weapon in our politics. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. When our words become weapons, what's the safety switch?